Hello, Old School Comics Review. Okay, this time we're going to look at a comic called Elektra Assassin. This was written by Frank Miller and drawn by Bill Sienkiewicz. Um, I'm a big Frank Miller fan, and it kind of surprises me a little bit. Well, maybe not so much. But whenever people talk about Frank Miller's great works, they kind of gloss over this comic. They always talk about, Dark Knight Returns, Ronin, the stuff he did for Batman for DC, his Daredevil run at Marvel, and this was coming out like right around that same time or a little bit afterwards, and people kind of gloss over it. So I wanted to talk about it. Came out in the like I said, mid-late '80s, and this is when Frank was at his peak. He's just coming off of those other works, and he's just firing all engines. He's the most popular comic book artist at the time, most popular writer, and he's using that fame. Sure, he's making little changes in the industry as far as how creators are being treated, and also using his fame to kind of push the envelope of what can be done in comics, and especially like mainstream comics, I should say. Another thing that was going on at the time is direct sales in the comic book shops were becoming a more important way of distributing mainstream comics. So you didn't just have to rely on the newsstands and the drugstores and so on and so forth like before. And so the Comics Code Authority, which is kind of like the good housekeeping seal, that little stamp thing that you would see in comics at the time, became less and less important. So like I said, Frank was pushing a lot of boundaries as far as subject matter, as far as action and violence, and in this particular comic book, language. And like I said, I think another reason it's not really popular is because even though it features a pretty popular character, this particular story I don't think is really in continuity. It's not considered canon, so you don't have a lot of other writers or artists trying to build off this story. And the other thing, it's kind of a difficult read. The art is really experimental and different, and it's a kind of hard read. You actually kind of have to read it a couple times to get what's going on. So let's kind of talk about the story. I'm going to try to sum it up, but it's not all that easy. Basically, Elektra is a ninja assassin, and she finds out that the Hand, which is this evil ninja clan that trained her, is worshiping this sort of mystical demon type creature called the Beast. And she finds out that the Beast has some evil plans. The Beast wants to basically wipe off all human life from the face of the earth or whatever. So she decides it's up to her to stop the Beast. En route to doing this, she runs afoul of a really dirty mouth shield agent named Garrett. And it starts out where at first she's kind of manipulating Garrett. And that's another thing. Without giving too much away, all the ninjas and things have these weird psychic powers and mind swap and body swap and mind control powers and things like that, which is actually kind of important to the plot. So just to let you know there. So like I said, it starts out she's manipulating Garrett at first, but as things go on, he kind of starts going along with her of his own free will. So basically, Elektra's trying to stop the Hand and the Beast, and then S.H.I.E.L.D. is trying to stop Elektra and Garrett. And it's actually a really interesting comic. This is Frank. It's really smart writing too. This is Frank really pushing things, and doing satire, and doing it well. I mean, the action parts are exciting when they're supposed to be, edge of your seat when they're supposed to be. But the funny stuff is funny, and there's a lot of things going on where part of the plot has something to do with there's a presidential election, and you have to figure out how the Hand and the Beast are figuring into this presidential election and what they want to do without giving too much away. Well, I'll just say it. They kind of want to jumpstart World War III. But like I said, there's brilliant satire going on, where Frank satirizes the left wing, he satirizes the right wing. There's a crazy right wing nut in the White House, but then there's a phony liberal who's probably who's running for president at the same time, and he hits those notes perfectly. They really work. Like I said, I'm repeating myself when I keep saying this is Frank at its best, but it's really smart writing. Everything flows. The dialogue is great. One thing, though, I want to say is I read an old interview where he says, yeah, what I was trying to do with this story was presented in such a way where it's kind of like Rashomon, only none of the viewpoints are reliable. So basically, the story is being told by various different viewpoints. You get Elektra, you get Garrett, you get various other characters who come in and out of the story, and then there's also lots of flashbacks, flash forwards, and things like that. So it's kind of, when you think about it, it's kind of a straightforward story, but it's told in a very unconventional way. Other characters that are involved in this are, there's Garrett's partner, who's a sociopath. His name is Perry. There's a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent named Chastity McBride. Nick Fury makes an appearance. He has a real small part in it, but Nick Fury's in this comic as well. Getting to the art is by Bill Sienkiewicz. Bill Sienkiewicz is just coming off of Moon Knight, and he's coming off the New Mutants at the time. And just like Frank was pushing the borders with the writing, Bill was pushing the boundaries with the art, and I think it's just marvelous. Like I said, this was a time when things were changing in the industry, and a lot of comics were going away from that cheap newsprint and that limited kind of four-color coloring, and you've got more complicated production values going on. So most of this comic is painted, but what he does here is he uses various styles throughout. Some of it's painted very realistically, some of it's very abstract and expressionistic, some of it's cartoony, some of it's I think it's I don't know if it's oils or if it's watercolors, but some of it's pen and ink, and I think he even uses, at some point he uses like some collages, and it's just really striking. That's the word I want to use. He uses a lot of symbolism. Things aren't always literal. Sometimes he draws the literal object there. Sometimes he uses a lot of symbolism, and it's just really great. And the thing is, what's interesting about this is, it's not a thing where it's like, okay, when he draws it this way, it's Garrett speaking, and when he draws it this way, it's through the eyes of Elektra, or when he does it this way, it's the past, and when he does it this way, it's the present. That's not what's going on. He doesn't mix it up page by page or scene by scene. He's mixing it up literally from panel to panel to panel, and it's all very arbitrary. So you really kind of got to work to kind of figure it out. You can figure it out, but you got to work. You got to work with it. And that's another thing. A lot of humor. Frank writes some funny dialogue in here, but the art helps along too. Like I said, with the symbolism and the cartoony stuff. Some of it reminds me of Ralph's, I think you say his name, Steadman, the guy who did the illustrations for Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, if you know who that is. So he's mixing in all of his superhero art, he's mixing in fine art, he's mixing in caricature, he's doing all these different things, and it was really innovative and really striking, and and really kick ass, if you ask me. And I kind of get the feeling that's probably why this isn't as big of a hit, or doesn't get talked about in the same breath as stuff like Daredevil, Born Again, or even Ronin or things like that. Like I said, you kind of got to work with it a little bit. But if you do give it a chance, it does pay off. I would definitely recommend this. You know what I would? I would recommend this to anybody you have in your life who's like an art fan, who doesn't normally read comics, but they're a visual artist or whatever. Give them this comic, give them this thing. Definitely anybody who's a Frank Miller fan, definitely anybody who got turned on to Elektra from the Jennifer Gardner movies or anything like that. My copy, well, you're going to have to look for this because I don't even know if it's exactly in print. The copy I got is from like the late 80s. It doesn't even say Marvel Comics. It says Epic Comics. And this is one from the late '80s. I do know they re-released it in the early 2000s, so with a different cover, you know. So I would say, you know, check online if your brick and mortar store doesn't have it. You know, maybe they order for it, but look for it online. I'm sure you'll find it, and once you do, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. So once again, I got to thank you very much. Tell me what you think. Please rate this review. Leave any comments. Thanks, and I'll talk to you soon.